The tunnels smelled like iron and old smoke. Rin had been told many times not to come down here. His mother had said it with her eyes first, that flat, heavy look she gave when words alone were not enough, and then with her voice, low and serious, the way she only spoke when she meant something forever. The lower shafts were unstable. The lower shafts were for the workers, not for hatchlings. The lower shafts went deep enough that if something went wrong, no one would hear you. He had come down anyway. It was Paul's fault, technically. Paul was 3 seasons older than Rin and had the kind of confidence that came from never having been seriously hurt yet. He had dared Rin in front of 4 other hatchlings, which meant that refusing was no longer really an option. So Rin had taken the dare, climbed down through the maintenance hatch behind the grain storage, and now he was here, 200 meters below the colony's living levels, alone, walking through a tunnel lit only by the faint green glow of mineral veins running through the rock. It was actually beautiful. He had not expected that. The colony above was functional and gray, all pressed metal walls and recycled air that tasted faintly of other people. Down here, the rock itself glowed, green and pale blue in long branching lines like frozen rivers. Rin spread one wing slightly and let the light fall across the membrane. It turned his wing translucent, like a lamp held behind paper. He was so busy looking at his own wing that he did not notice the sound at first. A low, rhythmic groan, deep inside the rock. Not a voice, something structural, something vast and unhappy. Rin stopped walking. The groan came again, longer this time. He knew, in the way that young creatures sometimes know things before they fully understand them, that he should move. He turned back toward the maintenance hatch, took 4 steps, and then the tunnel dropped. Not far, not all the way, but the section of floor behind him buckled and fell into a lower cavity, and the ceiling of the passage cracked down the middle, and dust and rock rained in a thick curtain across the path he had just walked. He threw himself forward and pressed against the far wall, wings flat, and the noise was enormous, a grinding, tearing sound that went on for what felt like a very long time. Then silence. Rin stayed against the wall for a long time before he moved. When he finally checked, the exit was gone, not blocked by a little rubble that might be pushed aside. Gone, replaced by a solid fall of rock from ceiling to floor, thick and dense and very final. He pressed both front claws against it. It did not move. He pressed harder. A small stone shifted and the rest settled tighter. His wing hurt. He looked at it and found a tear in the membrane, thin but real, running from the 3rd joint outward. It was not bleeding badly, but it pulled when he tried to fold the wing, and the pull had a hot edge to it that made him feel slightly sick. He sat down on the tunnel floor. The green mineral light was still there, steady and indifferent. The air recyclers in this section had gone dark. He could tell because the usual faint hum was gone, replaced by total quiet. The air he had would last a while. He did not know how long. He had not paid attention in the colony safety lessons because he had not planned on needing them. His mother's voice came to him then. Not the warning about the tunnels, a different one. Older. The one she gave him when he was very small, when he had asked why the murals on the east wall showed fire falling from the sky. She had sat with him for a long time before answering. She told him about the war. Not all of it, she never told him all of it, but enough. She told him about the ships that came with no warning. She told him about the burning of the evacuation corridor, which he now understood was the reason she never let anyone walk on her left side. She told him about the species that flew those ships. Bipedal, soft-skinned. No natural armor, no venom, no claws worth mentioning, and yet somehow the most dangerous thing in the known galaxy. They do not stop, she had told him. That is the thing about humans, Rin. Other creatures stop when they are hurt or frightened. Humans do not stop. They do not feel things the way we feel things. They keep going when they should be dead, and they do not feel fear the way we do, and when they want something, they do not rest until they have it. She had pulled him close then, and her burned flank had been warm against his side. "If you are ever alone," she had said, "and a human finds you, run. Do not talk to it, do not let it come close. Run." Rin sat in the mineral light with a torn wing and a blocked exit, and he thought about that. Then he heard something moving on the other side of the rubble. Not the settling of rock, not the groan of stressed stone, something deliberate, rhythmic, something that knew where it was going. Something alive. He pressed himself back against the far wall, wings flat, and made himself as small as he could. The sound got closer. A scrape, a pause, another scrape. And then, through a gap near the top of the rubble, small, barely large enough to see through, a light appeared. White and steady, and carried in a hand. A human hand. Rin stopped breathing. The light did not sweep around looking for things to find. It just held still, steady in the gap, like it was waiting to see what the darkness would do first. Then a voice came through. It spoke in Galactic Standard, which was the trade language and technically the language of nobody in particular. The accent was human, flatter than most, with that clipped quality that made humans sound like they were always slightly impatient. But the words were slow and careful. "If anyone is alive in there, make a sound. Any sound. I am not going to reach through. I just need to know." Rin did not make a sound. He was pressed against the far wall, 8 body lengths from the rubble, and his heart was moving so fast he could feel it in his torn wing. He had heard human voices before, on colony broadcasts. In old war recordings the elders played for historical education. He had never heard one speaking directly into a space he was also occupying. The light stayed still. "Okay," the voice said. "I'm going to keep talking so you know where I am and what I'm doing. My name is Darrow. I'm a field medic with the emergency response team that came in after the collapse. I'm not armed. My partner is working the other side of this blockage to see if there's a faster way through. I am going to stay right here." Silence. Then I can see a wingtip, just the edge of it past the third rock from the left. It's reflecting my light a little, so I know you're there and I know you're not a piece of equipment. Rin looked down at his wing involuntarily. He had not realized part of it was visible. "I'm going to put my light down between us," Darrow said. "Not pointed at you, pointed at the ceiling, just enough to see by. Is that okay?" Rin said nothing. The light moved anyway slowly, set down just inside the gap at the top of the rubble pile. The beam turned upward, diffusing against the tunnel ceiling, and the green mineral glow and the white artificial light mixed into something softer. Rin could see more now, including the human. He was not large as humans went. Rin had seen images. Humans varied enormously in size, and they all looked slightly unfinished to Draken eyes, too exposed, too many soft surfaces. This one had short dark hair and a jacket with many pockets and both hands visible, resting on the rubble in front of him. He was looking through the gap, not staring, just looking. "There you are," Darrow said quietly. Rin's wings pressed flatter. He had not moved. "I can see an injury," Darrow said, same tone like he was reading a report. "Right wing, membrane tear. Third joint or thereabouts. It's not bleeding heavily or you'd have left a trail I'd have spotted earlier, so that's good. How's your breathing? The recyclers in your section are down, I'm tracking that, but the shaft is large enough that you have air for a while yet. Nod if your breathing feels normal." Rin did not nod. Darrow didn't push. He shifted slightly, settling his weight differently against the rubble, and looked up at the ceiling for a moment like he was thinking. "I've treated Draken patients before," he said. "Not many, 2 total. One was an adult male with a compound fracture of the foreleg after a cargo accident. The other was an elder female with a respiratory infection. Neither of them liked me much. That's fine. You don't have to like me. You just have to stay where you are and not move the wing." A pause. "Are you going to move the wing?" Rin realized he had been pulling at it slightly. The membrane was pulling back toward his body, the way a hurt thing tries to protect itself. He stopped. Good, Darrow said. It was the calmness that was the most frightening thing. Rin's mother had told him that humans did not feel fear normally, and this was what she had meant. Darrow spoke the way Rock sat, like nothing was happening that required panic. The tunnel had partially collapsed. A child of another species was trapped and injured and refusing to acknowledge him. The air recyclers were down, and Darrow sounded like he was describing the weather. Rin had expected aggression. He had expected grabbing hands and loud commands, and the kind of speed his mother described, that human tendency to move before anyone was ready. He had not expected this. "Can you tell me your name?" Darrow asked. "Nothing." "That's fine, you don't have to." He reached into one of the jacket pockets slowly, and he said the words slowly out loud first. "I'm reaching into my left pocket now and pulled out a small packet. This is ration food. I'm not going to throw it at you. I'm going to set it next to the light. You don't have to eat it. I just want you to know it's there." The packet went down next to the light. Rin stared at it. He thought about the murals on the east wall, the fire from the sky, his mother's burned flank. Then he thought about how the human had said, "I'm reaching into my left pocket," before he did it. No one had ever told him that a monster would do that. "Rin," he said. His voice came out smaller than he intended. Darrow did not react with surprise. He just nodded, once, like a name was useful information and nothing more. "Rin," he repeated. "Okay, can I come a little closer, Rin?" Rin did not say yes. But he did not say no. Darrow moved like someone who understood that speed was the enemy. He came through the gap in the rubble slowly, testing each handhold, announcing each move in that same flat informational voice. Left hand on the big rock, right knee coming through. He stopped once halfway when Rin's growl rose involuntarily in the back of his throat, not a decision, just a reflex, and Darrow went completely still and waited until the growl faded before he continued. He sat down on the tunnel floor 6 body, lengths away, and did not try to close the distance further. He took a proper look at the wing. "The tier runs from the third joint toward the trailing edge," he said. "Maybe 4 centimeters. It is not clean, it has a small secondary split at the top end, which means it was impact damage, not a cut. That kind heals with more scarring than a clean tier if it is not wrapped properly. The scar tissue will pull the membrane when you extend the wing, and it may reduce your flight range." He paused. "I can wrap it. The materials I have will work. I have used them on membrane tissue before, different species, similar biology. It will hurt more before it feels better. That is not a threat, it is just how membrane treatment works." Rin was quiet. His eyes had not left Darrow since the human came through the rubble. "Why are you telling me all of that?" he asked. "Because you are scared," Darrow said, "and scared patients fight back. I would like to keep my fingers." Something shifted in Rin's chest. Not trust, it was not big enough to be trust, but something smaller, a crack in the wall that the fear lived behind. "You have treated Draken membrane tissue before?" he asked. "No," Darrow said. "I said I treated Draken patients. The foreleg fracture did not involve membrane. I am working from general tissue mechanics and what I know about cartilage joint injuries. I will tell you if I am guessing. I will tell you when I know." Rin looked at the torn wing. The hot pull had grown steadily worse in the past hour, which he understood meant that the tissue was swelling. "All right," he said. Darrow moved closer. Not fast. He announced each shift of position the same way he had at the rubble. When he was close enough to reach the wing, he stopped and held up the kit he had taken from his jacket, small, flat, the kind of thing built to be carried through collapsed tunnels and bad situations. "I am going to open this now," he said. "The disinfectant will sting. That is the first thing I apply. After that is a membrane support wrap which will feel tight. Last is a numbing injection at the joint, which means it will be uncomfortable, and then it will stop being uncomfortable. Are you ready?" Rin set his jaw. Yes. The disinfectant did sting. It stung considerably more than Rin had prepared himself for, and he made a sound he immediately wished he had not made, and Darrow did not comment on the sound, just waited for Rin to settle and then continued. The wrap came next, thin and firm, applied in overlapping layers from the joint outward. Darrow's hands were quick in a precise way, not careless, and they did not hold any tighter than they needed to. The injection was a small sharp point at the joint and then a spreading cold and then, after a few minutes, nothing. The heat went out like a light. Rin exhaled. They sat in the mineral glow for a while without speaking. Somewhere above them, faint and very distant, Rin could hear Gale, Darrow's partner, working through debris on the other side of the blockage. A steady, unhurried sound. "Where is your family?" Darrow asked eventually. "Surface, my mother does not know I came down here." A pause. "I came on a dare." "How old are you?" Rin told him. Darrow was quiet for a moment. "Your mother is going to be furious." It was such a simple, obvious thing to say. Such a completely normal thing to say, the kind of thing a colony elder might say, or Paul's older brother, or anyone. Not the voice from the murals. Not the thing that burned evacuation corridors. Rin almost laughed. The laugh got stuck somewhere and came out as a strange exhale, but the shape of it was laughter, and Darrow noticed and did not make anything of it. "She worries," Rin said. "She should. You are 200 meters underground with a torn wing and a blocked exit." Darrow checked the wrap once more, adjusted the tension slightly at the trailing edge. "Does she know field medicine? Is there anyone up there treating injuries from the collapse?" "The colony has a medical station. 3 workers were hurt in the upper shafts." Rin watched Darrow's hands finish their work and settle back. "She will be at the medical station. She always goes where she is needed." "What does she do in the colony?" "She manages the ore sorting, but she is trained in emergency response from before." He did not say from before what. He did not need to. Darrow understood anyway. He said nothing for a moment. Then, "She sounds like someone who knows how to hold things together." Rin looked at the wrapped wing. The numbing had reached all the way to the trailing edge now. He could fold it without the hot pull. "She is," he said. "She holds everything together." From above, Gale's voice filtered down through the rock, not words, just a tone. "Progress." Darrow looked up at the ceiling, and then back at Rin. "We are going to get you out," he said. "Not a guess. That is a thing I know." Rin believed him. He was not sure yet what to do with that. The waiting was the strangest part. Not because it was long, though it was long, nearly 2 hours by Rin's internal count, but because of who he was waiting with. He had imagined many situations in his life where he might be frightened and far from home. A human sitting calmly beside him in the dark had never been one of them. Darrow had eaten half of the ration packet and offered Rin the other half. Rin had taken it after a while. It tasted like pressed grain and salt and something faintly sweet that he could not identify, and it was not good, but he ate it anyway because he had not eaten since that morning. The mineral veins in the rock kept their glow. The ceiling stayed still. Rin was the one who asked first. "Did humans start the war?" He had not planned to ask it. It came out on its own, the way questions do when they have been held too long. Darrow did not look away. He did not shift or straighten or do any of the things Rin had seen adults do when they wanted to rearrange a question into something easier. "Depends who you ask," he said. "The government that ordered the first strike said it was a preemptive defense. Most humans who actually fought in it knew it was not. The people who made that decision stood trial after the peace accord. Most of them died in custody." He looked at the tunnel wall. "It does not fix anything. It just means they are gone and the people they burned are still burned." Rin had expected deflection, or justification, or the complicated kind of answer where many words were used to avoid saying anything real. He had not expected that. "My mother has scars," Rin said. "Along her left flank. Burns. From an incendiary strike on the evacuation corridor during the third year of the war, she was carrying eggs. Darrow was quiet for a long time. "She should hate us," he said finally. Rin looked at him. "I'm not saying she is wrong to," Darrow said. The mineral light sat between them, green and steady and very old. Rin thought about the east wall murals, the stylized warships with their wide wings, the falling fire rendered in orange tile, the running figures below. He had grown up beneath that image. He had eaten breakfast beneath it. He had gone to sleep knowing it was on the other side of the wall. "She does not hate you," Rin said slowly. "She is afraid of you. It is not the same thing." "No," Darrow agreed, "it is not. She told me that humans do not feel fear the way we do, that you keep going when you should stop, that you want things until you have them and nothing gets in the way." Rin looked at the wrapped wing, the careful tight layers. "She said if I ever found myself alone with a human, I should run." "She is not wrong about the rest of it," Darrow said. "Humans do keep going. It causes a lot of problems. It causes a lot of wars." A pause. "It also means that when one of us gets into a collapsed tunnel looking for survivors, we stay until we find one." Rin turned that over. "What does your partner Gale think of this?" he asked. "Staying in a tunnel with a Draken hatchling." "Gale thinks I have poor risk assessment and a pathological inability to leave things half-finished." Darrow almost smiled. Rin could see the edge of it. Gale is usually right. From above, the sound of work continued. Patient. Steady. Gale was insectoid and had 6 limbs, 2 of which were built for moving heavy objects, and Darrow had explained that this made Gale considerably more efficient at rubble clearance than any human. Another human crew would have needed heavy equipment. Gale was the heavy equipment. "Tell me about her," Darrow said. "Your mother, not the war, what is she like now?" It was an unexpected question. Rin found himself answering before he had decided to. He talked about the way she sorted ore by touch even in low light, how she had trained herself to do it so she could keep working during the recycler failures. He talked about the corner of their quarters, where she kept a small collection of mineral pieces she had saved over 3 colony relocations, not valuable ones, just ones that had an interesting color or shape. He talked about how she hummed when she was working alone, tuneless and unconscious, and how she always stopped the moment she realized someone was listening, and then pretended she had not been doing it. He talked for a long time. Darrow listened, not impatiently, not waiting for Rin to finish, actually listening the way Rin's mother listened when something mattered. When Rin finally went quiet, Darrow said, "She sounds like someone who built a whole life out of something broken and made it real." Rin thought about the mineral collection, the humming, the flat, heavy look she gave when words were not enough. "Yes," he said, "that is exactly it." A sound from above, different from the steady rhythm of work. A sharp crack of rock and then Gale's voice, clear and close now, filtering through a much thinner barrier. "Darrow, I am through to a stable cavity. We can move in 12 minutes." Darrow stood and looked down at Rin. "Can you walk?" "Yes." "Does the wing pull when you fold it?" Rin tested it carefully. "No." "Good." Darrow picked up his kit. "Let's go home." The word landed strangely. Home. As if Rin's home and Darrow's home were the same direction, as if that were a natural thing to say. Rin filed that away alongside everything else he did not yet know what to do with. He stood up and walked toward the rubble. The surface was louder than Rin remembered it. He had been underground for nearly 6 hours, and somewhere in those 6 hours the colony had filled up with people who did not live there. Emergency vehicles with bright lights. Workers in response jackets moving in quick directed lines. The smell of the surface, oil and cooked food and too many bodies, hit him hard enough that he stopped walking for a moment just to breathe it. His wing would not bear weight yet. Darrow had said that clearly the wrap would hold the membrane, but the joint needed rest before it could take pressure. The passage up from the lower shafts was a narrow ladder shaft. He had managed it, just. Gale met them at the top, still dusty with rock powder from the dig, and said to Darrow, "You could have just marked the section as cleared." "I could have," Darrow said. "The structural team would not have gone in for hours. He would have been fine." "He would probably have been fine," Darrow agreed. "Probably is not good enough." Gale made a sound that Rin interpreted, based on context, as deep personal resignation. Then Gale turned and led them out. The colony common hall was lit up like a festival and felt nothing like one. Draken adults stood in clusters near the walls, speaking in low voices. 2 colony workers had been taken to the medical station. A third was still unaccounted for in the upper shafts. The response team was working on it. Overseer Breck stood at the center of the hall with his arms crossed and his broad chest scaled dark with stress coloration. He saw Darrow first. "You went into the lower shafts," Breck said. His voice was the kind of quiet that was louder than shouting. "Yes," Darrow said. "You went alone into Draken colony space with a hatchling." "I went into a collapsed tunnel with a trapped and injured child. The child is Draken, yes." Darrow's voice had not changed in the 6 hours Rin had known him. It was still that same flat, steady thing. "He has a membrane tear on the right wing, third joint. It is wrapped and numbed. The wrap needs to stay on for 3 days. He needs fluid and rest. The colony medical staff can manage the follow-up." He held out field notes, handwritten on a small paper card, because signal did not reach the lower shafts. He held them toward the nearest medical worker, not toward Breck. Breck stepped forward. "You had no authorization to enter." "Overseer," Rin's voice, small but clear. Breck looked at him. The hall looked at him. "He found me in the dark," Rin said. "He told me his name. He told me everything he was going to do before he did it. He fixed my wing." He looked at the overseer steadily. "He did not hurt me." Breck's stress coloration did not fade, but he was quiet. Darrow handed the notes to the medical worker, picked up his kit and stepped back. He did not argue. He did not look for acknowledgement. He just moved out of the center of the room to the edge of it, where Gale was already standing and stood there. Then the hall door opened. Rin heard his mother before he saw her, the specific quality of her footsteps, which he had known his whole life. Quick and heavy and purposeful. She came through the door with dust on her shoulders from the medical station, and her eyes moving across the hall in that fast, sweeping way she had when she was looking for something important. She found him. She crossed the hall in 3 strides. She said nothing. She went straight to him and wrapped around him, both arms, wings half spread, the way she had held him when he was very small and something had frightened him, and the burned flank was warm against his side and smelled like home and iron, and she was shaking slightly, which she would never have admitted. Rin held on. After a long moment she pulled back far enough to look at him. Her eyes went to the wrapped wing. Her hands, careful, precise, the hands that sorted ore by touch in the dark, traced the edge of the wrap without touching it. Then she looked up. She had not looked at Darrow yet. Now she did. The hall was very quiet. Rin watched his mother look at the human. He watched everything that moved across her face, the recognition, the old fear, the older anger, all of it real and earned and hers. He watched her look at the wrap on his wing and then back at Darrow's face. Darrow met her gaze and did not step back. Rin said quietly, "He told me everything he was going to do before he did it, Mama." Sierra did not speak for a long time, then she nodded, once. Darrow nodded back. It was not forgiveness. Rin understood that. He was young, but he understood that some things required more than a nod in a crowded hall, and that his mother's burned flank and the murals on the east wall were not going to be resolved tonight. But it was something. Breck, from across the hall, said, "The human team may stay through the night shift. The upper shaft recovery is still ongoing." It was not warmth, but it was not the door either. Darrow said, "Thank you," simply. Rin looked up at his mother. Her hand had come to rest on his back, steady and present. "Come," she said quietly. "You need water and rest." At the doorway, Rin looked back once. Darrow was already talking to the medical worker about the wing notes, pointing at something on the card, absorbed in the next task. Not watching Rin go, not waiting for anything. Just doing the next thing that needed doing. Rin turned and followed his mother home. 1 week later, Rin's wrap came off. The colony medical worker, a quiet female named Das who had worked the station for 11 years, inspected the membrane with her scanning tool and then with her own eyes, and said that Darrow's field wrap had been applied correctly and the secondary split had closed clean. The joint would need another 2 weeks before flight stress, but the scarring was minimal. Rin had not expected that to make him feel anything in particular. It did. He sat in the recovery room for a while after Das left, folding and extending the wing slowly, watching the membrane move the way it was supposed to move. Then he got up and went to the docking bay. The human relief team was packing up. The upper shaft survivor had been found on day 2, a worker named Bren, badly dehydrated but alive, and the structural team had finished their assessment on day 5. There was nothing left that required the response team to stay, and they were not the kind of people who stayed past the end of a job. Darrow was loading equipment cases into the transport when Rin found him. He looked up, saw Rin, and set the case down. "The wrap came off," Rin said. "I heard." Das sent a report to the response team's medical log. He looked at the wing briefly. "Extension looks good." "It feels right." Rin paused. "I wanted to ask you something before you left." Darrow waited. "Were you scared in the tunnel?" It was the question Rin had been carrying for a week. His mother had said that humans did not feel fear the way other species did, that this was part of what made them dangerous. Rin had sat in the dark with Darrow for nearly 6 hours and never once seen what fear looked like on a human face. He needed to know if that was because Darrow had not been afraid, or because afraid looked different on a human, or because something else entirely was true. Darrow crouched down so he was at Rin's level. He considered the question seriously. "Yes," he said. "I was scared the ceiling would come down on both of us. I was scared I would get the wing wrong and make the membrane heel crooked. I was scared Gale would not break through fast enough and the air would go thin before we got out." He looked at Rin steadily. "I was scared the whole time." Rin stared at him. "You did not act scared," Rin said. "I know, that is different from not being scared." Darrow stood back up. "Your mother is right that humans keep going when other species stop, but she is wrong about the reason. It is not because we do not feel it. It is because we learned a long time ago that stopping does not make it go away. You feel it and you do the next thing anyway." Rin turned this over carefully. It was not the answer he had expected, and he was not sure yet what to do with it. "I am going to tell her what you said," he said. Darrow picked up the equipment case again. "She probably will not believe you." "She will believe me," Rin said. "She always knows when I am telling the truth." Darrow looked at him for a moment. Something in his face, not quite a smile, but the shape underneath a smile, appeared briefly, and then settled back into the usual steadiness. "Good," he said. "Tell her." Gale appeared at the transport door and said something to Darrow in the shorthand they used between them. Darrow nodded and looked back at Rin once. "Take care of the wing," he said. 2 weeks before flight stress. Not 1.5. "I know," Rin said. "Das told me." "Good, she is right." Then Darrow walked up the ramp and the transport door closed, and that was that. Rin stood in the docking bay for a while after the ship was gone. The space where it had been was just empty now, a square of floor and the faint smell of recycled fuel and nothing else. He went back inside. His mother was in their quarters, sorting through a box of mineral pieces she had not yet unpacked since the last relocation. She did not look up when Rin came in. She was holding a piece of pale green rock up to the light, turning it slowly, the way she always did when she was thinking about something else. Rin sat down near her and told her everything. Not just the rescue, the field light set between them, every step announced before it was taken, the wrap applied in layers in the dark, the question about whether Rin was ready before the disinfectant stung, the way Darrow had said he was scared the whole time. His mother listened without speaking. Her hand stayed still in her lap, the green mineral piece resting between her palms. When Rin finished, the room was quiet for a long time. Then Sira said slowly, like she was measuring the words as she placed them down, "There may be more than one kind of human." It was not forgiveness. Rin was old enough to understand that. The burns along her flank were still there. The murals on the east wall were still there. The war was over, but the things it had done were not undone. But she had said it. He thought about the mineral light, green and steady, set between them in all that dark, not pointed at him, just there. "Yes," he said, "I think so too." His mother looked at the pale green stone in her hands. After a moment, she held it out to him. He took it and turned it toward the light, the way she had shown him, and the color ran deep and clear all the way through.